This is SpaceTime, Series 28, Episode 58, for broadcast on the 14th of May, 2025. Coming up on SpaceTime, is there a new kind of dark matter in the galactic center? The Lunar Gateway Space Station's first habitation module arrives in the United States, and more space junk threatens the International Space Station. All that and more coming up on SpaceTime.
Welcome to SpaceTime with Stuart Gary.
Astronomers have uncovered a mysterious phenomenon in the center of the Milky Way galaxy, which could reveal a new, different kind of less massive dark matter. Dark matter is a mysterious invisible substance which makes up some 85% of all the mass in the universe, yet scientists have absolutely no idea what it is. They know it exists because they can see its gravitational effect on surrounding space, keeping galaxies from spinning apart as they revolve and bending light from distant objects. Now, in a first-of-its-kind study, scientists have taken a step closer to understanding this elusive substance by taking another look at a previously dismissed candidate for dark matter that could be behind unexplained chemical reactions seen taking place at the centre of the Milky Way. One of the study's authors, Shyam Balaji from King's College London, says the key could be huge clouds of positively charged hydrogen located at the centre of our galaxy. Their existence has been a mystery for decades because normally the gas should be neutral. So that raises the question of what's supplying enough energy to knock all the negatively charged electrons out of these clouds. Balaji says the energy signatures radiating from this part of the galaxy suggest that there's a constant roiling source of power doing that, and his data suggests that it might well be coming from a much lighter form of dark matter than what current models are considering. Now, most established hypotheses designed to explain dark matter describe it as likely being weakly interacting massive particles, or WIMPs, tiny subatomic particles which pass through regular matter without much interaction, and that makes them extremely hard to detect. However, this new study, reported in the journal Physical Review Letters, has potentially revived another type of dark matter, one with far lower mass than your traditional WIMP. The authors think these tiny dark matter particles are crashing into each other and, as a result, are producing new charged particles in a process called annihilation. And it's these newly produced charged particles that are subsequently ionizing the hydrogen gas. Previous attempts to explain the ionization process in these gas clouds has always relied on cosmic rays, fast and energetic particles which travel throughout the universe. However, that explanation has some difficulties. For example, the energy signature recorded from observations of this area, known as the central molecular zone, isn't large enough to be attributed to cosmic rays. And such a process doesn't seem to be possible with WIMPs either. So the research team have been left with an explanation that this energy source which is causing the annihilation is slower than a cosmic ray and less massive than a WIMP. Balaji says the search for dark matter has seen a lot of experiments here on Earth, and none of them have produced anything conclusive. But by using gas at the galactic center for a different kind of observation, astronomers might be getting straight to the source. And the data is telling scientists that dark matter could potentially be a lot lighter than they thought. The finding may simultaneously explain wider mysteries in our galaxy as well, such as a specific type of X-ray observation found at the center of the Milky Way, known as the 511 kilo-electron-volt emission line. See, this specific energy signature could also be due to the same low-mass dark matter colliding and producing charged particles. It's an interesting hypothesis, and it follows a trend where other low-mass candidates for dark matter have already been postulated. This is SpaceTime. Still to come, the Lunar Gateway Space Station's first habitation module arrives in the United States, ready for final fit-out, and then it's up to orbit. And speaking of space stations, more space junk is threatening the International Space Station. NASA have been forced to take evasive action. All that and more still to come on SpaceTime. Okay, let's take a break from our show with a word from our sponsor, Insta360. Get ready to capture the universe like never before with Insta360, the undisputed champions of 360-degree cameras. Their latest masterpiece, the Insta360 X5, is here to blow your mind with features that make every shot out of this world. First up, there's the X5's invisible selfie stick. It creates those jaw-dropping third-person angles and those drone-like follow shots that'll have everyone asking how you did that. See, the selfie stick vanishes from your 360-degree footage, leaving pure magic. There's no such thing as magic. Well, there is with Insta360. Pair that with the ability to shoot first and point later. Record everything in stunning 8K, then use the Insta360 app's AI-powered reframing tools to pick the perfect angles for that perfect shot, all after the fact. It really is like directing your own sci-fi blockbuster. And with flow state stabilization and 360-degree horizon lock, your footage stays buttery smooth, no matter how wild the action gets. Built like a spaceship, the X5 is Insta360's toughest camera yet, with replaceable lenses made from super strong optical glass and IP68 waterproofing down to 49 meters, perfect for those underwater cosmic vibes. Plus, that massive 2,400 mAh battery keeps you rolling for up to 185 minutes in endurance mode. Now, to bag a free 114cm invisible selfie stick worth $24.99 US with your Insta360 X5 standard package purchase, head to the store insta360.com and use the promo code SpaceTime, available for the first 30 standard package purchases only. That's insta360.com and use the promo code SpaceTime. And for more information, check out the links in our show notes. And now, it's back to our show. The first habitation module for the new Lunar Gateway Space Station has finally arrived in the United States. Known as the Habitation and Logistics Outpost, or HALO module, it'll be a core element of the Lunar Gateway Space Station, which will be humanity's first lunar space station. The pressurized module was fabricated by Thales Alenia Space in Turin, Italy, and then shipped to Northrop Grumman's facility in Gilbert, Arizona for final fit-out. It'll then be sent to NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida, where it'll be integrated with the space station's PPE, or Power and Propulsion Element. The two components will then be launched together into lunar orbit aboard a SpaceX Falcon Heavy rocket ahead of the Artemis 4 manned lunar mission. Gateway is important to the Artemis program because it'll provide a staging post for manned missions to the lunar surface and eventually manned missions going to Mars. HALO will operate as the command and control hub for Gateway. It's equipped with multiple docking ports, which will be used by spacecraft such as NASA's Orion, as well as lunar landers and cargo and logistics vehicles. And it will provide data handling, energy storage, power distribution, thermal regulation, and communications and tracking capabilities for the space station. HALO will also include the telecommunications section of the European Space Agency's Sprite service module. That'll be slated to launch in 2027 and will include a small windowed habitation section, as well as more docking ports, an airlock, and refueling infrastructure for the space station and for lunar landers. Another component called the International Habitation Module, or IHAB, is now being jointly built by the European Space Agency and the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, JAXA. It'll also launch sometime next year. An IHAB will also include a new Canadian Space Agency-built robotic arm. Other proposed segments include more logistics modules for supplies and storage, and a purpose-built airlock module for extravehicular activities outside the space station, as well as additional docking ports for deep space transports. The current plan is to have astronauts occupy the 40-ton space station for up to 90 days at a time. Now, although it's called a lunar space station, it's actually quite a bit away from the moon. See, Gateway will be positioned in a highly elliptical translunar orbit known as a near-rectilinear halo orbit. Instead of orbiting directly around the Moon in low lunar orbit, like the International Space Station does around the Earth, Gateway will follow a highly eccentric path. At its closest, it'll pass about 3,000 kilometers above the lunar surface. But its orbit will then swing it out to some 70,000 kilometers away at its most distant orbital position. Now, this design will allow Gateway to be both relatively close to the Moon for excursions down to the lunar surface, but also allow for shorter trips to the space station by spacecraft traveling to and from the Earth with crew and supplies. See, most current rockets don't have the power to reach the Moon directly in one go, but they could reach Gateway. So after liftoff, only a moderate maneuver will be needed to slow a visiting spacecraft for rendezvous with Gateway. For example, it means Europe's Ariane 6 could be used to deliver supplies for astronauts for use on missions to the Moon or deeper into space. And at the other end of the journey, NASA will be using a modified version of SpaceX's Starship, known as the SpaceX Human Landing System, or HLS, as a lunar shuttle transporting crews, robots, supplies and infrastructure from Gateway down to the lunar surface when the space station's closest to the moon. And that'll happen about once every 7 days. Likewise, a transfer window to Gateway opens about every 7 days for the return trip from the lunar surface to the space station. And Gateway's orbit will rotate together with the moon. As seen from Earth, it'll appear a little bit like a lunar halo. Now, orbits like this are possible because of the interplay between the Earth and the moon's gravitational forces. As the two large bodies dance through space, a smaller object can be caught in a variety of stable and near-stable positions in relation to the orbiting masses, also known as libration or Lagrangian points. Such locations are perfect for planning long-term missions, and to some extent they'll dictate the design of the spacecraft, what it can carry to and from orbit, and how much energy it needs to get and stay there. Travelling on the near rectilinear halo orbit, one revolution of Gateway in its orbit around the moon will take 7 Earth days. This period was chosen to limit the number of eclipses when Gateway would be shrouded by the Earth or Moon's shadow. However, near rectilinear halo orbits are slightly unstable, and objects in these orbits do have a tendency of drifting away. That means regular small station-keeping manoeuvres will be needed to keep Gateway in position. We've learned how to do that by keeping the International Space Station in its correct orbital height above the Earth. This report on the Gateway project by NASA TV.
Gateway is in of itself a humongous technological marvel. It is the first space station around the moon. It is going to be a very important part of our future exploration missions. We know how to live and work in low Earth orbit, but now it's time to go further. Artemis is going to take us to parts of the moon that we haven't been to before.
Going back to the moon has to be an international cooperation. The resources and the efforts required to make this happen are just too much for any single nation to go on their own.
There's the old saying that if you want to go fast, you go alone. If you want to go for a long time, you go together. And so it's going to take a humankind effort to go to the moon and then use that as a stepping stone to go to Mars. To be able to go and do lunar surface exploration missions and do sustainable missions, be able to do long duration missions, go to the moon to stay rather than just to visit like we did during Apollo, we need a space station, and Gateway's that station. The international crews and the international astronauts that will perform these missions will be the first humans that are making their home in deep space.
Think about all that we've learned from the International Space Station as a low Earth orbit laboratory. Gateway will be an extension of that and continue that legacy of science and discovery.
We are going to be learning about deep space exploration. When we're in low Earth orbit, we're protected. When we're around the moon, we don't have that protection. So it is going to affect everything. We have the very unique ability at Gateway to study that radiation. Gateway sounds so science fiction, but it's real and we're building it, and science will never be the same.
In one of the first steps of our Artemis lunar exploration plans, we have selected Maxar Technologies to provide the power and propulsion element for our Lunar Gateway. The Power and Propulsion Element is a spacecraft that will use high-power solar electric propulsion to give our explorers aboard the Gateway access to the entire surface of the moon. It will also enable the Gateway to serve as a mobile command and service module by providing a communications relay for human and robotic expeditions to the lunar surface.
This is a critical capability for not just a sustainable lunar return, but also an eventual journey to Mars.
NASA's current lunar exploration plans call for a return to the moon, a sustained human presence on and around the moon by 2028.
This is SpaceTime. Still to come, more space junk threatens the International Space Station, and later in the science report, new insights into how the Earth's continents are moving. All that and more still to come on SpaceTime. NASA has been forced to move the International Space Station again to avoid some large fragments of space junk. The orbital correction maneuver involved the Russian Progress MS-30 cargo ship, which was docked at the space station, firing its thrusters for a 212.79-second burn, in the process increasing the station's orbital altitude by 540 meters. Now, without this maneuver, NASA estimated the fragment could have come within 6 kilometers of the space station. That's too close for comfort. The space junk's been identified as part of a Chinese Long March rocket launched back in 2005. Space junk has become a constant problem for crew aboard the orbiting outpost, with collision avoidance maneuvers now being undertaken multiple times every year. Each time it happens, crew have to stop what they're doing, take refuge inside one of the dock capsules, just in case something hits the space station and they're forced to make an emergency evacuation and return to Earth. And the trouble is, that problem's only going to get worse. This is SpaceTime. And time now to take another brief look at some of the other stories making news in science this week with a science report. A computer simulation of Earth's population growth has shown that humans will need to have more babies than the current rates if the species is meant to avoid extinction. The findings, reported in the journal PLOS ONE, shows that Homo sapiens survival requires every woman of childbearing age to have an average of at least 2.7 children, much higher than the 2.1 previously thought would be enough to keep people going. The researchers say the previous 2.1 kids per woman rate doesn't account for random differences in how many kids people have, or things like birth rates, gender ratios, and the fact that some people never have children at all. They say the research shows that women need to have at least 2.7 kids to reliably avoid eventual extinction of the species, especially in populations that are already small. So it's 1 kid for mum, 1 for dad, and 1 for humanity. A new analysis of lava flows that solidified and broke apart over a massive crack in the Earth's crust in Turkey has brought new insights into how continents move. The findings, reported in the journal Communications, Earth and Environment, will help improve science's understanding of earthquake risks. The new research by Curtin University has revealed that Tsugalu Fault Zone, a more than 200-kilometre-long geological structure visible from space, is slowly pulling apart, providing a rare glimpse into the forces that shape Earth's crust when plates collide. The study solves a long-standing mystery about the fault's movement, unambiguously revealing that the fault is pulling apart at a rate of about 1 millimetre per year, rather than, as other studies have suggested, it's shifting sideways. Understanding these movements is crucial not just for assessing volcanic and earthquake threats, but also for improving global models of continental deformation. A new study has shown that teenagers diagnosed with a mental health condition report spending about 50 minutes extra per day on social media compared to their peers. The findings, reported in the journal Nature Human Behavior, looked at self-reported social media use among more than 3,000 teens, 16% of whom had at least one diagnosed mental health condition. The researchers say participants with depression or anxiety disorders reported comparing themselves to others on social media more frequently. They also reported being less happy with the number of friends or followers they have on social media, and that their mood was more strongly being impacted by how many likes, shares, and comments they get. Apple have started rolling out their latest series of updates for iPhones, tablets, and Macs. With the details, we're joined by technology editor Alex Haravroit from Tech Advice Start Life.
The ritual of updating all of our devices on seemingly a monthly basis is about to start up again with iOS 18.5. Currently, I'm running the release candidate, but by the time people are hearing this, iOS 18.5 should be out. And whilst there's the usual bug fixes and new wallpapers, there is sometimes some new features. And the feature that really caught my eye was that the emergency SOS and messaging features that were debuted with the iPhone 14 and then were available with the iPhone 15 and 16 are actually going to be backported to the iPhone 13. So this is big. I mean, they clearly had the technology ready to go at the time, but the satellites weren't in place, or maybe they just weren't ready to launch it. This is going to be something that enables millions more people in the case of an emergency.
I think Elon's
to be
got
able
more satellites up there. I think that's the key.
One of the flights had launched 29 more satellites. I mean, Elon is launching more and more satellites all the time. And he's also upgrading his satellites to version 2, which can do higher bandwidth and will in the future enable voice and video calls as well as high-speed data. I mean, at the moment, most people are just using it to send messages for emergencies, but also if they're off the beaten track, they can send Find My notifications to relatives who know that they can't otherwise track their loved ones on some hiking trail because there's no 4G or 5G infrastructure. So, yeah, the satellite revolution has really accelerated. And by 2030, being able to access voice and data from virtually anywhere on the planet, unless you're deep underground, is going to be just taken for granted, just in the same way that we take mobile phones for granted today. And yet in the 80s, it was car phones.
So these updates, will they be extended to other products as well?
Yes, there'll be 18.5 for iPadOS, 15.5 for macOS, should be 11.5 for the watchOS, and new versions 2.5 for the Vision Pro OS. So yeah, all the different Apple devices. If your device can still get updates, expect an update by the time you're hearing this. And if not, it'll be in the very few days thereafter. But new updates coming all the time. Stay updated.
That's Alex Zaharov-Reutt from TechAdvice.life. And that's the show for now. SpaceTime is available every Monday, Wednesday and Friday through Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcast, Pocket Casts, Spotify, Acast, Amazon Music, Bytes.com, SoundCloud, YouTube, your favorite podcast download provider, and from spacetimewithstuartgary.com. SpaceTime's also broadcast through the National Science Foundation on Science Zone Radio and on both iHeartRadio and TuneIn Radio. And you can help to support our show by visiting the SpaceTime store for a range of promotional merchandising goodies, or by becoming a SpaceTime patron, which gives you access to triple-episode commercial-free versions of the show, as well as lots of bonus audio content which doesn't go to air, access to our exclusive Facebook group, and other rewards. Just go to spacetimewithstuartgary.com for full details.
You've been listening to SpaceTime with Stuart Gary. This has been another quality podcast production from Bytes.com.